Okay, so today is a commentary about workflow. As you can see, the sword girl animations come along just fine. And I like the way I can use a sub X sheet here. If I go down into this sub X sheet, it's all broken up into separate levels, and I can deal with ink and paint very nicely. So then, as you can see, that's coming together pretty well. Part of it's colored. But I have to say, at the pencil test stage, where you're mapping out the actual action and doing the whole plan before you get to ink and paint, I'm still kind of coming back to Blender, and here's why. Basically, the way you can sketch something out and then maybe go to a forward keyframe. Let's say in this case I've got this sketch and I just want, say, a turn of the head, but I don't want to have to redraw it. Basically, I'm lazy. I don't want to draw it twice. I like the way I can grab this, set the cursor there, hit the period key so that rotations occur around the cursor, and then I can make an adjustment using obviously proportional editing to just figure out how I want that motion to go. And if I really wanted to, I could hit Control-Shift-E right here and interpolate keyframes through that whole thing. Okay, so that's a pretty powerful capability, that because of the and the sculpting ability as well. So if I deselect these and then I hit the E key, actually I should show you. If I pop up the menu, I've switched it, or I'm going to switch it from smoothing to grab mode, like that. So now when I hit the E key, I can just sculpt this. So basically in Blender, even though you're sketching like you'd sketch with a pencil, they behave like vectors. They remain sharp and they're totally sculptable. So from that standpoint, it seems to me that mapping things out is more intuitive, it's faster, and plus you could work out camera moves and all that stuff right in Blender, and then just export the image sequence and do your ink and paint elsewhere. Now you might want to do your ink and paint here. So let's lock the blue pencil here and say I'm going to switch to some super smooth ink to the color black, and let's say I'm going to ink it in here. Now if I bring the sketch into Toonz by just exporting it as a ping sequence, okay, then we can just bring it in and ink over top of it. It's possible you'd want to go ahead and ink over here, and that would be fine. So what I'm going to show you in a minute is how to convert the sequence, the image sequence, into a Toonz raster level so that you can use all the advantages of the Toonz raster level paint and fill options when you're ready to go ahead and deal with coloring stuff in. Because really that's where everything tends to fall apart with all of this software, is at the point where you're having to fill closed shapes, and especially if you want to work quickly, nobody can beat Toonz in that regard, because you could have a 60 frame long sequence, and if you click in one spot in frame 1, and then let's say your character's moving or whatever, you go to frame 60 and click another spot, oftentimes it'll actually go ahead and fill the whole sequence, which is very cool. All right, so let's say I'm just going to go ahead and I want to do my ink here. And by the way, this is extremely choppy. It's normally not choppy at all. It's choppy because OBS is running in the background doing the screen capture, and that's really bogging it down. So, but normally Blender's really fluid. You know, it doesn't have that choppy problem like you just saw. Fortunately, the smoothing on the ink pen is kind of taking care of that. Now, if I go ahead and hide my blue pencil, what I'm going to do here, and this is just for demonstration purposes, I'm going to hit the A key, and then I'm going to hit the J key to connect all these, and then I've set up the hotkeys so that if I hit Control-Shift-J, it also makes it cyclic, so this area right here is closed. Now, if I wanted to, I actually could go ahead and move this to this color and instantly color it in. So you have the option if you want to deal with shapes and export it that way, but obviously you don't have to. So the inking process, just going ahead and doing it within Blender, can be quite a big win, actually. You know, because you could take this now and just kind of, you know, sketch over it and, you know, go ahead and, again, because of the OBS choppiness and the, and plus the smoothing on the brush, it looks kind of stupid. But I mean, my point is you can just ink over it and then export it and you're good to go. Okay, so now the question becomes, if you want to deal with painting inside of Toonz, how do you do that? And that's something that's going to come up over and over again. So I'm going to go ahead and just create a new scene and show you how to do this, because this is really an important thing to be able to do. I'm just going to discard the changes. The secret to that is right here, and it's called Convert File. So I'm going to go here, and I actually have this already set up because I already did it once. But what I did was I pulled up an image sequence, which was a walk cycle from something I did a few videos ago. And you just set it, so this is a ping image sequence. Now, if the image sequence is numbered, file name, period, a 4-digit number, like 0000 through 0060 would be frame 0 through 60, okay? Okay, so name dot 4-digit number dot ping. And you can set that up in Blender in your file naming. Let me show you right here. If you're wanting to export from Blender or either the sketches or ink. Okay, what I've got here going on is I named the file image out. I just gave it a name, which in this case is Blender by default, period. So I want to look here and see, as usual, I'm going to probably bump into bump into a problem, which 100% of the time this is what happens. I'm doing a video, I instantly bump into something that I don't know what I'm even talking about. Okay, let's go ahead and save out this sequence right here from Blender, specifically to see what's going to happen. Okay, so it's going to image out Blender, and yep, let's change the file name to image out test dot. Okay, I'm going to accept that, and then I'm going to make sure, it looks like it put an underscore in there, so I'm going to make sure that that's a dot. Okay, and then I'm going to render this as a sequence, even though there's hardly any animation in it. I'm going to go ahead and render it as a sequence. So Control F10. And why I can't see anything there, I don't even know or care, but okay, I'm going to hit escape. Look in here, P apps Blender data image out. All right, I'm going to go to that folder, computer, P apps Blender data image out. Okay, and there's a bunch of stuff here from the past, but here's my image test, and you can see that Blender did what I hoped it would do. It went ahead and gave it 4 numeric digits. So if you are exporting something from Blender, you give it a file name and add a period to the end of the file name, then it will append the period plus the file numbering, and then the file plus a period, then the file extension. So that's good, because that's exactly the format that Toonz is looking for. If Toonz sees an image sequence where it's file name dot 4 digits, and as far as I know, I haven't tested this, but this is what I learned in the past, and so far I've seen it to be true, is that if it's not 4 digits of numbers, Toonz won't know how to read it. There needs to be 4 digits. Okay, so there's that. So the good news is Blender exports it in a format that Toonz seems to like. Now, I want to give a caveat here, which is that it could be that there's something in the Blender settings that I set a long time ago, and I just don't remember doing it, where I told Blender to give 4 digits. Okay, and maybe the default is 2 or 3 or something like that. Truthfully, I don't know. So if you run Blender and you try to export an image sequence and it doesn't have 4 digits in the file name, then look into it and let me know, or add a comment below so that we figure out how to solve that together. But as far as I can see, 4 digits is the default with Blender, which is exactly what you want. It's possible that that's in your user preferences or something. Okay, so anyway, given that Toonz can understand the image sequence, you can just load up, and by the way, you know it understands it because when you try to load it, Toonz sees it as walkcycle.png. Okay, so instead of putting the numbers in, it just puts in ... so that you know that it sees it as a sequence, and you can confirm that here because it gives you the start and ending numbers for that image sequence. And now we get back to where we started, which is we want to create a Toonz raster level so that we can do coloring on that image sequence. Okay, so even though this has taken a long time, the actual process just takes seconds, which is pretty cool. So for your file format, you want to select TLV because that's the format, that's the actual image extension for a Toonz raster level image sequence, or yeah, that's probably the way to say it, an image sequence. It becomes a level, you know, when you bring it in. Okay, so the mode, you can experiment with these, but I use unpainted TLV just for kicks and grins. I did add anti-aliasing the last time I did it. Normally I just keep the original anti-aliasing. This is kind of interesting. When it creates the Toonz raster level, it also creates a palette. Now, if there's any coloring, in fact, actually, even if it's just line art, if there's any aliasing in it, think about it. There's actually a lot of different levels of gray in those lines as they are anti-aliased to create a smooth edge. So that means that when Toonz looks at that image sequence, it's going to think that there are a lot of different shades of gray in your image, and it's going to stick those all in the palette, and you may have to delete them back out. Okay, it's not the end of the world. Now, just as an experiment here, I'm setting the tolerance to 99. In the past, I've had it at 0, and I wind up with lots of colors. So let's set it at 99 and just see what happens. All right, and then I'm going to, okay, this is going to be called walk cycle converted. Let's go ahead and convert that. And it'll probably take, I don't know, it's about 60 or 70 frames, so I'm thinking it's going to take about 30 seconds to convert it all. And then we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see how the palette turns out. I'm hoping, because if you actually look at the Toonz manual, it does not, all it says is that the tolerance is how you affect the correlation between RGB values in the image sequence and the number of entries or indexes it calls in the palette. The manual doesn't tell you how that tolerance value affects the number of indexes in the palette. So it doesn't explain whether, if you want fewer, in other words, if you want to be super sensitive and add 1,000,000 colors to the palette, do you set the number high or do you set the number low? It doesn't actually explain that. It just tells you that there's a correlation between tolerance and the number of palette entries. So that's not super helpful. But let's load a level now. Load level, and then I'm going to look through here, and oh my gosh, where did I do the conversion? I believe I did it in image out. So click that. Toonz is usually a little pokey about this. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and load walkCycleConverted.tlv, which is what I wanted. Okay, and there it is, and it loads up really quick. Now what's going to be weird about this one in particular is that because part of the first few images in the sequence were already colored, Toonz went ahead and chose one of the colors. It was a flesh tone, and then made that the main color for the outlines. But here's the good news. This is actually really cool, and we just figured this out together, which is that and so the reason this is showing black, this is not an error. It's because, like an idiot, I'm converting an image sequence where part of them were already colored. Ideally, that would not be the case. You'd just be converting line art, and you do all the coloring in Toonz. Okay? But what's good here is what we see is by setting the tolerance high, I set it to 99, it literally didn't figure out any colors from the image sequence, which is really what I wanted. I want to go ahead and deal with the colors myself. Okay? So now, the line art that I created in Blender originally is now a Toonz raster level, which means I can use the Toonz tools to do the painting. Okay, and so now here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the F key to fill, just by way of demonstration here. I've got this set up here to frame range. Okay, if I take this and turn it off, then if I do a fill, it's just going to fill it. And by the way, the Toonz raster level fill tool does a very, very good job of filling shapes and dealing with small gaps and things like that. It's really quite good. Okay, so but what I want to do is I want to color my whole image sequence all in one shot. I don't want to have to sit here and color every frame. So I'm going to click frame range, and I'm just going to click here on his coat, and you see there's a red dot. Now let me see here. Okay. So I happen to be on frame 26. I wasn't thinking I should have been on frame 1, but that's okay. I started at frame 26, and look what it did. Okay. Not too bad. The only reason here that only the cuff is colored is because it's just coincidence. Based on where I put the first click, when it interpolated from the first click to the last click, the click happened to land in the cuff, and so that's what got colored. Not a big deal. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and go from beginning to end and just see what happens. All right. Loop. Okay, not too bad. So I might have to go through and click in different areas of the image to get it all to color properly, but the cool thing is I can do it all in one shot, and then I can also go back here in the palette and say, well, obviously I didn't want that to be a bright red, so let's just go ahead and fix the color. And you can essentially fix it in post, which is kind of nice. So what did we learn today? Number one, there are definitely reasons why you might want to do your pencil test work in Blender, which has to do with sculpting and saving having to redraw things over and over. Number two, if you happen to want to do your ink in Blender or elsewhere, now you know how to bring it into OpenToonz as a Toonz raster level so that doing the painting process is the best possible. The intermediate solution in between, which I've demonstrated in other videos, would be to export the image sequence from Blender, bring it into Krita, and do your filling on a different level, because then you only have to do a fill operation where the keyframes have changed. That probably didn't make a lot of sense, but there's another video that explains all that. The bottom line is you don't, again, in Krita, you don't have to paint every single frame. You only have to repaint the frames where somebody actually moved. Now, in this case, that would be a major pain because he's moving all the time. So there's no compelling reason to want to do it in Krita. You would definitely want to do your painting here in OpenToonz. Now, if I want to fix this up and kind of solve the obvious problem, I can just go in and just start. Like, I think what I'll do here is I'm going to go ahead and click down below and see if it's smart enough to sort of figure out, it's doing okay. Let's click there. But I mean, for me, the bottom line is it's still really fast. It's really fast, and there's something up there that's going to have to be fixed up. But it's definitely a good, fast, easy workflow. You can almost wing it by just click and see what happens, and then wherever it fails, just go in and fix it afterwards. Right there. I mean, you know that's gonna fill. And if I want to see, and you can see where the red dot is, so we want to go, let's say, from here to here. Okay, got an itchy nose today for some reason. Yeah, and see, it did a good job. It went ahead and, whoops, clicked the wrong thing. So you get the idea. So anyway, that's it for today, and have fun.